What the Hex, your source for Warhammer Underworlds in under 30 amazing in-faction upgrades. I'm your co-host, Davy. With me, as always, and my co-host who just considers my death the price of victory. Phil, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Wasn't expecting that one.
We are coming at you. For context, we are recording on August 9th. What's that you say? Your last episode was August 9th too. That's correct. No. Phil and I are both doing some traveling. I'll be gone for a couple of weeks, and so we're having to record out ahead of time. Rather than dump these both at the same time, we kind of like to spread our content out. That may be the way some people like it. Maybe some people want it all at once. So we just kind of do it the way we do to try and keep you with that steady flow.
Yep. Drip feed.
Yep. As promised, we'll be talking about the deck that I built for our championship game played last episode. If you haven't heard that, you can listen to us recount the battle of Starblood Stalkers versus Hexbane's Hunters. And like I said, we're literally immediately following episode 84. So, Phil, what the heck's been going on with you since we last recorded?
Whoa. Well, lots of technical difficulties, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's about it. So that's what we've been up to is just rolling right into this episode. But we did have a community shout out we wanted to hit real quick. It's something that would be easy to kind of overlook in all the excitement of these new releases. But WathLab has finished his Chosen Axes overhaul. A really cool project, and like a labor of love. Sort of went in card by card, fighter by fighter, talked about like a guiding philosophy. He's like, what would this warband look like if it was designed today rather than in season one? Like what does it need to be not like S tier beating the entire world, but just to be competitive and built with some of the design philosophies that they have kind of worked into, because the developers have learned along with us as they've kind of worked on the game. So
yeah,
he's put links to that up in the most common discords you'd encounter, and most of those, if you're having trouble finding it, let us know. It's a little slightly more tricky to find otherwise for people who don't frequent Reddit like me.
Same.
But I will we'll look to have a link to it in our show notes or in the episode post on the website. So really cool. And Phil, he kind of implied the next warband he might take a look at it is Garrick's Reavers.
Oh man. So. Well, don't touch them because they're great the way they are. Although my luck seems to have run out with them a little bit. The last two games I've played with them, I've gotten stomped. So
oh no.
Yeah. It's kind of surprising.
Okay.
I will say Wormspat is an especially bad matchup for them, even with the new deck that I built.
Oh, sure. You gotta, to pure carnage, you gotta get them down to just one survivor on the whole board, huh?
Yeah. And they don't go down easy.
No.
Those damage reductions really hurt. So
notoriously so. Yeah.
It was interesting.
Okay.
Made some bad plays too, but I mean, it was like, I have not played this matchup in ages. What is this going to look like? And I just got blown apart. It's like, right. Whoops. So I'd like to play them again.
Well, that's how you learn, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's debrief that a little bit more. Another maybe off air or something like that. I'd be interested in digging into that some. So.
Sure.
All right.
But yeah, we got a deck to pick apart here.
Yeah, we do. So this is a deck I put together with my bare hands because these cards are not on. Yeah. And this was kind of looked at them and I said they get all these benefits for dying. They have a lot of things that kind of lean into that. Let's see if we could lean into that a little bit more. And try a pure carnage build or a build in general that acknowledges the fact that you're going to be losing fighters along the way. So that was the guiding principle of this. And then I thought a little bit of flavor in there was you actually have a fair amount of movement flexibility with those dogs. So wanted to keep that in mind as well. And so we'll get into it. I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of cover the go card by card through what I built, and then identify the ones that we think are like maybe edge cases or questionable choices or potentially potential to be replaced by something, and then I figure out what you might want to salt in instead. And if you're listening along and there's a card that you are shouting at us to like, why didn't you include this? Let us know on any of the many places you can talk to us, Twitter or in the Discords or on Facebook at any of those options. And then also any of our episodes that you can comment directly on the website. Whatever is easiest for you, we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
All right. Phil, you ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right. I think the best place to usually start with this is with the surges. So the two that jumped out to me right away were a couple of universals, and this is Sudden Revelation and Horrors in the Dark. And these are we all know Sudden Revelation at this point. If you flip 2 or more feature tokens in a power step, you score it.
Yep.
That's something you can set up in a single activation, courtesy of Rat Spike and Grotbiter.
So good.
Yeah, the 2 new best boys in Underworlds. And then Horrors in the Dark, very similar. If you get the tokens kind of in a spot that you want, you can charge one of your hunters forward, take a shot with them. I kind of like Pock for this. And then Pock sets up on that, is kind of got a lot of tankiness, and then sends a dog onto one of the other ones. So if you're really lucky, you can even get a support out of it. So think about where you're placing your cover hexes. Put them in a spot that a dog could get to and support somebody who's maybe starting out. So
pretty solid.
Yeah, it felt good. It felt like pretty scoreable, and then didn't need dice to go a particular way. So.
Yeah. And I think these are just common staples right now. Cover is sort of the name of the game, and they're just so easy.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
A fine place to start with pretty much any warband in the game.
Mm-hmm. My next one was, since I am going for that pure carnage build and expecting to lose fighters, I did spend one of the 3 restricted slots on everything to prove. We also all know this. Get it after an activation if the opponent has the primacy token.
Yep.
Unless somebody plays a card that turns one of your people into a quarry. I don't have anything that does that in here. I kind of didn't find the space for it, and so you'll never get it for having the primacy unless your opponent somehow helps you out.
Yeah.
With all your fighters being 2 wounds or 3 wounds, it feels like you're going to take some one-shot kills. Curiously, in our game, it did not ever actually happen because of the number of times I got pinged, but it is what it is.
Sort of an interesting one there, because Stalkers might be one of those like very low damage warbands. I don't know of how many other warbands really don't have too many other 2 damage fighters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's especially egregious when Clacktrock is not finding his hits.
Yeah.
So.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next 2 are cards that are built around the fact that I'm going to be taking a lot of swings. It's a warband that wants to be fighting. It's happy to be mixing it up and losing people, so getting into dangerous spots. So contest to equals is in there. That's a second restricted slot being spent on that, and that's for obvious reasons. You throw enough attacks, take enough attacks towards you, it's going to score. So
comes up all the time.
Yep. Due Process. Due Process is a faction-specific one. The Surge hybrid. Score immediately after your warband makes a 4th or subsequent attack action in the same round, or after the 2nd or subsequent successful attack action made by your warband in the same round.
So good.
It is good. This is it's unlike the Let the Blood Flow, which needs 3 different fighters to successfully attack for Reavers. The successful part of this is just 2 attacks that succeeded. They could be both by the same fighter. You can include reaction attacks in there. So there's a retractable pistol we'll talk about later, which can generate a lot of attacks. And then there's that the stake that they can throw, like making a point. And so you can kind of cheat out some more that way. But with some accuracy boosts, the 2 successful is not unreasonable. But it's nice to have the insurance policy of the the 4 total at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of going to happen, right? I mean,
Yep. Yep.
you're doing one of those things one
Yep.
way or another.
Accelerates if you've got scything, if Bridget gets her scything up, or if
Oof.
you happen to decide to
Yeah.
put in Mighty Swing. So
Yeah. Mighty Swing, I think, would be pretty hard for these guys. They don't have a lot of range one, but you could make it work.
yeah, they got a couple. Pox is terrible. The dogs are not good. I mean,
Amos, I guess, can kind of.
Amos would be pretty accurate with his, and then you do have like the potential to do 3 damage with your Grievous. He can mighty swing a torch around with Haskell, but
Yes, if he's already
yeah,
inspired. Yeah.
yeah. But we'll get into that. That leaves one more surge, and I actually landed on Reckless Swing, and this is just because I've had kind of a soft spot for it lately, where you have that range 1 attack. It doesn't matter what it rolls. Phil, I'm going to flag this right out of the gate. This might be a questionable one.
Yep.
There's you don't want to be taking attacks with the dogs if you don't have to, although you can, right? Like you,
Yeah, it's doable, but
yeah, and you can charge them in, take that attack, and then still be able to move them courtesy of your Loyal Hound ability. So they're not stuck wherever they end up. So it's not awful. But also, this is one aspect of this card that a lot of people overlook, is that the targeted fighter has to have more supporting fighters than the attacker, and you can accidentally have, because of your hounds, if you're not careful, you can end up getting in a position where they actually have as many supports as you.
Yes. I have tripped myself on this phrasing of this card many a time, thinking they've got a supporting fighter, therefore I will score Reckless Swing.
Yeah.
Forgetting that because of the way I position my attack, I have the same number of supporting fighters and cannot, in fact, score it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after our match, I do kind of wonder how much you want your objectives to be dictating your positioning with this warband as well.
Yeah, that's fair.
They've got the advantage of being able to shoot, so you don't have to be moving forward super aggressively, and they are a little bit fragile. You don't want to just get blown apart. So I do kind of wonder if being able to hang back and feed off your stuff like Sudden Revelation to start things off is more efficient.
Sure.
It's not to say that Reckless Swing is bad. I think you can definitely run Reckless Swing with these guys and you'll be fine. But there's maybe better options.
So talk to me about some of those other options while we're still on the surges. Do you have some other things that you thought about?
So maybe not necessarily better, but one that's maybe safer is Orchestrated Kill. The dogs, I was a little surprised, actually. This is something I hadn't realized before we played our game, but like, you pretty much always are going to have support as long as the dogs are alive. And if your opponents are taking time to kill the dogs, great. Then they still served their purpose. They slowed things down.
Yeah.
I don't usually like having kill surges just because it always feels a little rough, but I think you're pretty much always going to have supports when you get kills with this warband, so this one doesn't feel so bad.
Sure.
So that's one that I thought seemed pretty decent if you're going to look for a replacement.
Yeah. There's an in-faction kill surge that I think is not a terrible shoot. I've got just a
yeah, it's
universals here.
An eye for an eye. Is that the one?
Yeah, I'm thinking of an eye for an eye. That's, you got it. And this is you killed somebody with an attack action, and you already have a friendly fighter out of action, and it's not a friendly hunter, which is a little bit of a rarity with this. Often, it's important when you play this warband to kind of pay attention to saying whether it says friendly fighter or friendly hunter, because they kind of, it makes a big difference whether the dogs can be involved. So you will be losing fighters with this, and so as soon as you've lost one fighter, this is just, did you kill him with an attack action?
Yeah.
So, pretty decent.
And then I did flag a couple others if you didn't necessarily want to have, if you didn't want to have a kill surge.
Okay.
I don't actually love any of these choices, but I just included them as things to think about. Impending Doom kind of has the same problem as Reckless Swing, actually. It's dictating your positioning. The dogs make it easy, but you do have to be moving a friendly fighter forward. I guess the way that you could maybe make this flex a little better is that it's going to come up a decent amount on your opponent's charges. And if they just fail to get a kill on you, then, you just pick this up.
Yeah.
Another one, I think you'd have to change the approach of the deck wholesale for this to make sense. But because you can get free objective or free upgrades out, I also thought Prize Beyond Measure is one that is not seen very often, but would be fairly easy to, I think, make happen. For folks who don't know, this is a surge that you can score immediately after an activation if you have a surviving friendly fighter holding an objective with 3 or more upgrades. It's a lot of work for not a lot of payoff, but when you have free upgrades, it's a little easier. So
yeah, that's a good point. I've seen people use this a little bit with illusions sometimes, where you can get them out early. But I don't think illusions are a thing that you really need to do in this particular deck. Although I wonder how deep down the rabbit hole could you go with faction upgrades and illusions, and you're playing illusions for free and throwing out.
Oh boy.
So
I mean, maybe. I don't know if there's enough good illusions that you want to do that, but
that's fair. That's fair.
And then I've actually been souring a little bit on the card myself lately, but Branching Fate is one that theoretically works for these guys. But there's just been so many times lately where I'm like, this has a reasonable chance of just coming up, and then it just doesn't. I keep rolling like 2 smash in my 3 dice rolls, and I'm just like, well, there's Branching Fate continuing to clog my hand for the umpteenth time. And it's not even a bad thing to have happen. It's just that it's not scoring and it's not getting out of my hand. So
it's considering they have a lot of 3 dice attacks. The uninspired sides, you can find yourself in a little bit of a jam because Amos and the dogs aren't going to help. Not that you want to be attacking with the dogs anyway. Pock, if he's uninspired, he's not helping. Bridget, actually, even she'll have to use her axes if she's uninspired. So you're a little more limited in which attack actions you can use to help you with this. So not super pumped about it.
Yeah, I agree. Just not really super happy with it as a card, but it's kind of always there as a free kind of option as long as you have some 3 dice attacks. It's well, it might happen. So
I thought a little bit, and I see you flagged it too, as Loyal Service, and this is a surge for if you successfully if an enemy's attack failed and you had a 1 or more supporting fighters, and just with Amos handing out supports on defense and the hounds being involved. And there's also if a friendly companion's attack action takes a target out of action.
Sure.
But I did eventually just be like, no, I don't. This is because Amos giving somebody 1 extra support. If you're on 1 shield and a single support, it's still not great. So
it's not great. I flagged it as playable. It is definitely not a strong choice. It is probably not one that I am considering putting back in.
So I think in that last spot, I think we're kind of in that Reckless Swing, or if you don't like it, then Orchestrated Kill or Impending Doom, I think are 2 real good options for you.
Yep.
I think there may even be, I don't like this much movement, but there's always the ever downwards. You have a lot of people you can a little bit faster. So
it's doable. You can do it all in your territory too, which you could make it work. I think I think if you're gonna go that route, you again probably are maybe structuring the deck differently. trying for a more hold passive approach. But
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely playable. It's
Yep.
playable. It's something you can consider. I didn't look super closely, but I'm pretty sure nothing from the new Universal cards was even like a considerable option here. Is there
Oh, there
anything?
were. I didn't see any of the surges that kind of lit my fire as far as that
Yeah,
goes. So,
it's
uh,
very odd. I expected there to be some new hotness to draw people's attention, but
mm,
very niche options. I think that's
yeah.
something we can talk about more later. But I was surprised.
Yep.
But that even with that one change, that doesn't change the glory total. So what are we? Well, I guess we can talk end phases as well, but I don't actually think there's much to change here.
Yeah. So where I landed on ed phases, we already talked about this pure carnage being kind of the central concept of this deck. So that was in there. That's kind of obvious. I used my last restricted slot on underdog, and this is
Yeah.
people are familiar with this. It's if the enemy has primacy, or if they have three or more objective cards more than you. It's a
Hmm.
bummer if you have to score it that second way, but. Um, that seems reasonable. The real question is whether you think that if you have something else you really want to spend that restricted on, then maybe you would revisit that. Um, and I think there may even be like ditch everything to prove and underdog to take primacy back out of the mix, and then lean on like impending doom. Like there's a way to remove it from the mix if you think it's just not reliable enough. But
Yeah.
there's that. Um, we already know that there's a faction objective. We talked about it last episode. Lives well spent. This was two or more friendly hunters are out of action, and you scored three or more objectives. It feels like that's going to just kind of click along in anything where somebody's fighting you at all.
Yeah.
That feels pretty doable. I've got proof of guilt in there. This is the triple hybrid, where real reliable late, where they're likely to have six objectives, and you may be able to get it early on if they're not being aggressive about leaving their territory, or being hyper aggressive about leaving it.
Yeah.
And then these last two are a little more challenging, but I thought Fearless Seekers was pretty reasonable, especially with the hounds. All you have to do is have two or more friendly fighters on feature tokens in enemy territory. You're going to be able to keep kind of bopping those hounds around to try and occupy things. That gives you the option. It does mean that you're kind of fighting over feature tokens, which is, pros and cons. Other decks are going to have more
Yeah.
resources with which to do it. But if you can keep them off them anyway, you can reduce their scoring. And then finally, Chum the Waters. And this is that duel. I always forget that this, all it says is that that enemy with you need an enemy with a wound counter on a feature token. It doesn't have
Yep.
to be actually, cover hex does not count in this case. So,
Yeah.
um, which is to say they could be a gloom or a flip, but it can't be like a printed cover.
Yeah.
This felt like it was going to happen. You have to work to kind of get up on that damage, and you're doing a lot of shots from long range. Sometimes Grievous will go for you, but there's a good chance that you're going to leave people kind of whittled down a little bit.
Yeah. I think this is just a really strong card, and any warband that's not looking to do one shot kills all over the place, like this is just a strong card in the current meta. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Uh, what that totals to is that's a deck that has 19 glory in it. So
Yeah.
that's that's pretty big for a mostly aggro deck. That feels pretty good. And so what that tells me is that if some of these end phases you're not totally wild about, there's some pretty reliable single glory end phases that
Yeah.
you could
You could
rotate.
flex down too.
Yeah, exactly. If you felt comfortable dropping your glory ceiling, which I think you have a little bit of room to do. Did you have any in particular that you wanted to point out as possibilities?
There's a couple for that sort of like down flex. I think if you're really trying to keep the ceiling up, you can even still consider Proud Commander, although I don't like the idea of two third end phase.
No.
Um, but that is a pretty reliable card. It's just like, are you going to score half your deck in this game? Okay. Yep, I think so.
Yeah.
And then if you're not doing that, which I don't think is a great idea unless you restructure the deck a lot, there's a few just sort of like somewhat reliable but not amazing options. They're just sort of staples. So things like Wasteland or Find a Path because you have hunters. You could do what's it called? Sinking Feeling for just
Mm.
being on more feature tokens, and you've got the dogs to sort of help you get there. Nothing I'm like super in love with. Nothing I would be like, oh, yeah, absolutely, this has to be in here. I actually like the way the deck's structured right now because I do think that you get your opponent in that catch 22 where it's like, if you're going to kill me, that's working towards my goal anyway, unless you kill all of my fighters. But I mean, most warbands don't like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, along the way, if you're smashing them, they'll get to shoot you back, and that's what they want. So feels
Yeah.
good.
Right now, you can score everything in the deck as long as you got 2 fighters left, and there's only a few that actually need 2 fighters to be around.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
besides just being able to do stuff, but yeah.
yeah. And I mean, you definitely want Haskell alive as long as possible. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I like it. I think the objective deck works. And like I said, there's really nothing in the universals that come with these guys to make me want to switch anything out.
Sure.
Yeah.
I thought a little bit about Great Gains, just having
Oh,
that in there
sure.
and just
Yeah.
being, but I didn't like having Great Gains in there with a third end phase because it felt like
Yeah, they can.
those two things that could kind of clog each other.
Yes, I think so. I guess. No, I don't think we need to mention them. There are some cards in the universals that you could play, but they're all. I will say this: all of the universal objectives are one glory, and none of them are like super super easy.
Mm.
So there's really nothing drawing me in there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's objectives, and that pretty well structures what we're looking to do for the rest of this deck. So
Yeah.
you want to run us down on your gambits?
Sure. I'm going to start with some of the faction stuff
Yeah.
because those are exciting. We talked about it last episode, but there's You Stand Accused, and this is a +1 dice to attack actions made by friendly fighters that target the chosen fighter. You're choosing an enemy fighter. This effect persists until the chosen fighter is out of action or ends in activation in your territory. So you have the potential, especially if somebody takes a move action or charges and doesn't they've ended no man's land or something like that. You can say, okay, well, you're about to get every attack coming at you for the rest of this round with an extra dice. There's also a nice little side thing, isn't that it's got a choose effect, so
Mm-hmm.
you can bust an illusion off of somebody if they've decided to do that. So
Feels good.
yep, can't complain. No range differentiation on that. So up close axes or at range pistol shots will equally work.
Maybe even a torch.
Yeah, exactly. My next one, and this is I'm going to just say this is I think my favorite gambit, if only because of the design space it's in the whole deck, is by Order of the Vault. Choose a friendly fighter. Give the chosen fighter an upgrade from your hand. Do not spend any glory points when you play that card. When you play this card, you can spend 1 glory point. If you do, draw 1 power card.
That is so good.
It's great, right? Like it lets you get one of those amazing upgrades that they have, and we're going to get to those later. It lets you get that out without having to lose anybody, without having to spend any glory. And guess what? If you get to the point where you don't need it anymore, this card just replaces itself. It's that easy.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way that it's totally dead is if you don't have any upgrades in hand, and that's about it.
Definitely.
So, excellent card, and it's really comes down to that caveat of the you can spend a glory on that upgrade just like a normal one, and then just replace this card. I love the fact that it can replace itself because it's a really powerful effect. This was always the thing with was it Spoils of Battle? It was a
Yeah.
season 1 card that lets you play an upgrade without spending it. And that card was amazing early and terrible late because it was nothing late once you.
It's just like, hey, I've got 10 extra glory sitting around. What is this card doing for me?
Yeah. And this card solves that problem, and that's awesome. Another one, and actually, so I never saw this card come up when we played, but I like it a lot, and we'll get into it. It's For the Order, and for those interested in the background, the order they're talking about here is the Order of Azir, which is this kind of Inquisition witch hunting thing. This card has Bridget just like going full ham with her axes. But this one is a reaction. Play this in your power step after a friendly hunter is given an upgrade. Remove all move and charge tokens from that hunter. So, yeah, pretty awesome. You could. This is that trick where you already have that price of victory where if you charge in and they kill somebody, you get to reactivate that fighter. This you can force the issue here with this. Pretty great. Things to keep in mind here is that if you are triggering price of victory during an activation because one of your fighters got killed, this will not trigger on that. So you can't use this during the action step or activation step, right? To basically double dip on price of victory, but you can double dip on price of victory if they did it in the power step. So if somebody finished you off with a ping, price of victory, you are in a power step. You just gave an upgrade for free. Now you can trigger this and get that. So there's some chaining of combos that you're going to be able to do in there, which is pretty cool.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And even if you just have to run it where you're just putting out an upgrade normally and then getting to pull charge tokens, that's not bad.
Right. And what this is, I talk about this frequently, but what I love about this / hate about if I'm playing on the other side is it's that kind of card that it kind of sows doubt when it's played. So somebody says, okay, like Haskell's already charged. He's got a couple upgrades that make him dangerous, but he's off the board. And you're like, and I can control. I can control it by like, I just won't kill a hunter until I'm okay with it. Or, maybe on the fourth and like, well, actually I haven't seen For the Order yet. Is he going to throw on another upgrade? And then I have to worry about him even more. So pretty great.
I guess, and I hadn't even really thought about it from the standpoint of the cards, but like maybe the thing with this warband is that they put you in bad situations no matter what. And even their cards do that. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah. Next up, I had Making a Point. We talked a lot about this last episode. This is choose a friendly, aimless, Bridget, or Haskell. So one of those three has to be around to be able to do this. And it's, I guess, because Pac is not carrying any stakes on him.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm looking at the model right now, and I don't see any hanging off him. He's too busy waddling around in heavy metal armor with grenade crossbow bolts. But but we've already talked about this. This is a 3 Fury. I'm sorry. This is a range 3 2 Fury 1 damage attack. Not great, but it takes on the effect of any upgrades you have, and we already know these guys are going to get upgrades out. They have great upgrades. There you go. And it has that circumstantial +1 dice and cleave if adjacent and target is vulnerable. So just good stuff there. It's going to help you get that due process scored. If you are someone who decided to give Branching Fate a try, if you have an accuracy bump on this thing, it can give you another chance at scoring Branching Fate. So there's always that.
Just solid.
Yep. The last faction one I had included was by hook or by crook, and this is the damage reduction one. It will be in play quite a bit because it's so easy to get upgrades out for these guys in general. And if they have upgrades on them in general, they're also going to be the ones you want to keep alive. So it's kind of nice. It is a little tough because somebody who is only got 2 health or 3 health is often just going to be straight up killed. But I think we sometimes overstate that situation, right? Like we say that. And then also your opponent is less likely to prioritize their damage upgrades if they're looking and saying, well, okay, like I already have more damage, or like I have enough damage to kill anyone. And so again, knowing this is out there, people are going to have to spend a little bit of glory to say like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to try for a 4 damage attack on Amos or Haskell or a 3 damage attack on any of the little guys. So
very much. Yeah. I mean, there have been a number of times where 1 damage has been a big difference in games I've played, where
sure.
it's like I've got a 3 or a 4 damage attack. I should be good to go. And it's like, well, no, one damage one way or the other. And that was enough to swing things. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's useful. And it's not just like an automatic get out of jail free card, which I think
Right.
they've probably learned is like too good.
Yeah.
Um, so I like it. I think it's in a good space here.
Sure. The rest of these I took from Universals, and for folks who know me, they know that most of these are probably pushes. So I actually put sidestep in instead of heated instinct because I don't have any way to make
Yeah,
somebody a
no,
quarry.
Corey.
It should actually be heated instinct on the off chance that somebody does turn you into a quarry. Then you can leverage that bonus.
Yeah.
But 99.9% of the time, it's probably no big deal. Hypnotic Buzz, just like it, and you can get the dogs into a position to make sure that they can trigger this.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. That's going to rotate with the new season because that's a Dire Cat marijuana
It
movie.
is.
In which case, your disruption will have to come from center of attention. Which more and more I'm coming around to the belief that this is such a flexible card. It should probably be in most decks, if not all decks.
It is exceptionally good card. It's got tons of uses, many of which you maybe not even think about until the situation comes up, and then it's like, oh wait, I can save my butt because I've got center of attention here.
Yep. You can run a dog into a spot to potentially disrupt multiple objective holders, feature token holders in the other side. You know, if they don't already have a fighter where they can do that, so that's always great. Yeah, just solid. And also it's a choose, so illusions can get busted on it too. My slightly more rogue choice for a push was Swarming Advance. This is choose 1 friendly fighter in enemy territory, push up to 2 other friendly fighters, 1 hex if they're closer to the chosen fighter. And this is again taking advantage of the dog's ability to run forward. And I think double push is important because that 3 speed is a problem. So
yeah, you need something, whether it's plus speed or pushes. Pushes are probably better for these guys because of their ranged attacks. But
yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really make that distinction.
Yeah, but it's solid, and I mean there are plenty of friendly push cards in the game right now. That Hypnotic Buzz is pretty much the only distraction clone that's really around anymore. So
yeah.
It'll be interesting when that one's gone, but
that leaves me with 1 gambit left, and this one is going to end up in my. There's a saying I'll sometimes use on Hexadus, like more cute than good. I took Beast Trail with the idea is that I've got 4 hunters and they're slow, and I could use this to pick up a hunter, and because they're ranged, I could pick them up and drop them in enemy territory and just start popping shots off. And I have the ability to peel off move or charge tokens, so I could even like get in there and whether it be for the order or with Price of Victory, all of a sudden be able to start causing mayhem back there. The problem is to set up for it, you got to put a fighter on an edge, so you have to pick a board that's got starting hexes that are on the edge, and if you don't end up quite using it, then that fighter may be too far away to get involved. It's just a little bit too much. I think there's more consistently useful stuff that you could use.
Yeah, it's one of those cards that has always, I think, intrigued and drawn people's attention, especially because of how good Hidden Paths was when we had Hidden Paths. And Beast Trail has not been Hidden Paths, surprisingly. It's just not as impactful. So,
yeah, well, and then a big thing is that for some significant chunk of Beast Trail's life, it's existed when there are no longer objective feature tokens that are on edges. When you used to be able to use Hidden Paths or this to hop in and steal a token, that was a bigger deal. But now it's not available to those decks, and so I think that really, mean, it's available. It's just not as useful, right? So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think that limits how much you see it. But the bonus of having a card that doesn't feel so great in this is that you can look at what else is out there.
Yeah.
Phil, what else is out there that you might consider?
Plenty of things,
Yeah.
because surge or gambits are pretty much always what you like to see. I don't know. I don't even know where to start. I pulled so many like playables that it's like you could choose a whole bunch of different things. I do really like, at least in theory, I really like Strength of the Swarm.
Mm.
Um, at worst, you're getting +1 dice, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that you'll almost always be able to make that happen,
Yeah.
because of the dogs. And then if you can find some other way to have an additional supporting fighter, and in our game, it came up twice, I think, where you had double supports, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, damage is not something that you have in droves with this warband. You're not getting to 4 damage really, except maybe with Bridget.
Mm.
Um, and this gives you a way to do it without a range restriction, unless I'm really just missing something here.
No, I think it's
Yeah.
wide open for that.
So, I mean, if you can sort of line it up, you can take a really nasty ranged shot here.
Sure.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yep. I think some other possibilities. There is one thing we should note is that we do have Chum the Water, right?
We do.
Um,
Yep.
So you automatically should be thinking of Suffocating Mists.
Yeah, it's one
Have
I
another way to cause it, right?
yeah, definitely pulled it. Pings are good when you've got lots of ranged short or ranged small damage attacks.
Yep. And actually, worth mentioning is one of the new gambits. There is Blind Gamble. This is a little more flexible. Well, not more flexible. It's more complicated. Let's say this.
Yeah.
This is pick one feature token that is not an objective token and is in a hex that contains a fighter with no move or charge tokens. Pick a number, then flip that token. If you reveal an objective token with the number you picked, deal 1 damage to that fighter. If it is an enemy fighter, or that fighter makes a move action, or range 1 or range 2 attack action if it is a friendly fighter. I think Suffocating Mist is just the easier thing to take here. But Blind Gamble gives you a chance for a ping, and then it's good that it restricts it to a range 1 or 2, so you're not, busting off extra shots here with your pistols and stuff. So
this is a really interesting card. It really rewards people who have a good brain for remembering which hexes were which.
AKA not me.
Yeah, not me either. I would never know which one was which, and I would forget and be like, well, I'm not even going to bother playing this. I'll embarrass myself.
Yeah, exactly.
I have it in my hand, and I'd be like, I'll just discard it. It's fine.
Yeah. No one needs to know.
I like the design space, but I don't think I would ever play it.
Yeah.
Just because it's too much work. But I think it could actually be pretty decent. But like you say, I think if you want damage, just go with Suffocating Mist. It's easier.
Yeah, I think that's a card. Not to get too off tangent, I think that Blind Gamble is going to be more powerful in decks that have a lot of range 2 stuff, like powerful range 2 attacks.
Yeah,
that's where like that free attack is likely to come in handy. So.
Yeah, and you can set stuff up. It's pretty good. Another one that I think is at least worth considering in here, that is from the new Universals, is the new Universal Order Gambit. It's called Disciplined Strike.
Oh boy!
So this is in effect, I guess it is slightly better than +1 dice. So it gives you the first attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation step has an innate single support.
Mm-hmm.
And if the fighter is an assassin, they are considered to have an additional supporting fighter. So if you're an assassin, you just get a single support.
Yeah.
But you've got the dogs, so you almost always have a single supporting fighter.
Yeah. There's no range restriction on this, so it's pretty great for that. It is effectively if you are on, let's say, Fury and you got the dog involved, then this is effectively almost 2 dice, because you'd expect one of those to have no successes and one to have a success. So it's
Yeah.
pretty great for that. And then there's the less variability. The one place where it's not equivalent to an extra dice is that there's no chance you're going to roll a crit on it.
True.
So if Grievous is important, or if you're trying to power through an attack because it's somebody like, I don't know, Glissette in cover, and she is going to roll a bunch of successes, you probably need to burn through it with a crit, then that becomes more significant. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty great. And the art is Amos just really laying into.
Yeah, they like sort of in some of this art, they're like, yeah, Amos, he's this guy who's coming in there just smacking people with his axe. His fighter card does not give me that impression at all, but
Yeah,
it looks cool.
I mean, he's doing almost the exact same thing on like the woodcutter's
Yeah.
strength card or whatever. He's like really, really giving it to Black Powder, like just
Really hate
separate that arm from
pirates.
his body. Yeah, yeah. I think we have some headcanon for Amos. So
Yeah.
not just a woodcutter, but a woodcutter that hates pirates.
Any other gambits though? I think I have one more if
Yeah,
you don't have one.
lay it on me.
So it's one that I've actually been seeing Skylar run a lot. It's called Cautious Maneuver. This is also an
Mhm.
order specific one. It's a reaction that you can play after a friendly fighter's move action, and you can choose another friendly fighter that is a hunter or is on guard,
Mm.
and you're pretty much all hunters. And
Mhm.
then that fighter gets to make a move action. And
Mm.
after the move action, they must be adjacent to the first fighter.
Sure.
Uh,
And
this is
you could chain a loyal hound off of that,
you
because
could.
if the second guy you moved was a hunter, then get a hound going in.
What I like with this is that it just gives you some flexibility for uh, basically doing like a mass repositioning. If you
Yep.
realize you're like way out of position and you're like, I don't like any of this, you can pull somebody back, you can move somebody forward to support, you can just like reshuffle a whole bunch of stuff, and your opponent's probably not seeing it coming. And with the dog movement as well, it's like, hey, half my warband just got to move.
Mhm.
Um, I think it has some play. I don't necessarily know exactly what you do with this, other than that it's flexible. But I mean, flexibility is always useful.
Mhm.
So I think it has a place.
Yeah. I think that's super solid, and it's one. I guess I don't play very many order,
Yeah,
very
right.
many order warbands, because it's not one that I was particularly familiar with. But I think there's some cool tricks with that. I think that especially becomes more helpful if you're leaning into a little bit more hold or anything like that. Like if
Yep.
you're trying to do like ever downwards and stuff, like it gets even better with that. But yeah. For me, stepping away from universals for a second, I thought there was one. It was lead the crusade. I couldn't quite decide. Like, this was a tough one. So this is a reaction. Play this after the out of action check of a friendly hunter's attack action. If the target was taken out of action, choose one friendly hunter, inspire the hunter, and draw one power card. So this is a way of, like, you're having trouble. I mean, it feels like it's mostly a Haskell inspire, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can use Pac or Amos or Bridget to inspire Haskell, and then by extension get Bridget. Or if Haskell is already dead, then Bridget has at least a route to inspire. And it also has this benefit of getting an extra power card. It's tough because it's that after a kill, and that can be pretty hard to get sometimes.
Can be hard to get, and it's a window that can frequently be blocked.
That's a good point.
Other
Sure.
people playing their own stuff. For when my fighter is taken out of action, I'll react to break this upgrade, or I will, draw power cards off of Dark Sacrifice, or what have you.
Yeah.
It is also one I looked at, and I was just like, this feels like the times when it's going to come up, either I won't have it in hand, or I won't be able to get the kills when I do, and I'll probably kick myself for having it.
Right, right. I think that's what I looked at it. And the benefit is potentially pretty great, but the idea that it could be stuck in there for a while is kind of a little bit of a killer. I think there was just one other faction gambit that I wanted to talk about, and I don't think it would fit this deck really well, but it's just such a head scratcher of one that I think it's worth talking about. And this is Prayers of the Faithful.
Yeah.
And so this one says this card cannot be played in an opponent's third or fourth power step. Until the end of the next power step, enemy fighters cannot cast spells and opponents cannot play ploy cards. So if we break that down a little bit, what it means is there's not going to be any spell attack actions for the next activation. There's going to be no gambit spells in this power step or the next power step because it goes all the way to the end of the next power step.
Yeah.
And then enemy ploys are out, so they can still upgrade, but it's also going to stop reaction ploys. So during the next activation, this is that thing. So it's got that no time vibe, right? Like you can use this if you're worried about, Berserk Fortitude or Lucky Narrow Escape or those powerful reactions. And at first I was like, well, this is not great because you have to play it very early in the round. It's specifically your opponent's third or fourth power step. You can play it in your own third or fourth power step. And that's an important distinction because what it's really doing is saying like, we want your opponent to at least have a chance to play one power card or do one thing. And so, because it's your power step, they have a chance to do a thing, and then you
play this and shut down the rest.
So, I don't think this does anything in particular to like help your game plan. And I think there'll be times you play this and your opponent's like, okay, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't anything I wanted to do. But other times it can put a lot of pressure on, say, like, people like to have the last say, especially if they're fighting over feature tokens or objectives, or, like you want to hold your confusion to see if your opponent has confusion. You want to hold your sidestep to see if your opponent has hypnotic buzz. And here you're like, if you know that Hexbane's player has this, you're like, man, I might need to use it now or forever hold my peace on that. So I think it's interesting. I don't think it fits this deck, but it's one that I want to try out. I think I may just force it in there at some point just to play with it.
I think I actually really like this card. And I think this is a card that immediately rewards people who are very experienced in the game and have a lot of knowledge about what their opponents are probably going to be trying to do.
Yeah.
If your opponent or if you are in a situation where you're just like, I don't know what they're going to try and do, I'm just going to do my thing and not even worry about their game plan, this card is going to do nothing for you. I mean, you might luck into a couple of plays where you're like, I stopped them from getting to do like a crucial push or something.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I know this warband and I kind of know their tricks and I know the timing that they're probably going to try and use for some of their tricks, you can just be like, nope, shut down, full on stop. And it's like, oh no, that is potentially like back-breaking in the middle of a round to just be like, oh, my whole plan just got shut down. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of the stuff we've said before about no time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This is quite a bit more flexible than No More Time, though. So.
Yeah. I think the advantage that no time does is that it prevents all power cards.
Yep. It stops everything. But
you can stop upgrades from coming out. But I tell you what, my real heroes are the players out there who are going to be playing Prayers of the Faithful and No Time.
Oh yeah, man. You see the like hardcore control deck come out with these guys and just be like, nope. You don't get to play cards. You don't get to resurrect your raise fighters. You're just gonna shut everything down here.
Yep. You don't do anything. I do all the things. Yep. But that's about where we land on Gambit. So I think Beast Trail's probably got to go. It's not awful, but I think it probably goes. And I think the easiest choice there is like Suffocating Mists.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it helps you. It plays a little better with your Chum the Waters.
Yeah. Yep.
Not exciting.
Easy choice. I mean, and I think maybe one of the easy lessons in this game is that the not exciting cards are usually the right choice. It's like it's simple, it's straight to the point, and does the job. That's what you want.
Yep. I'd be happy experimenting with Cautious Maneuver as well. But
it's again, it's like there's so many more layers of complexity that you have to figure out there. Whereas Suffocating Mist is like it deals a damage.
Right.
It's good. I don't know what to say.
Okay. Well, on to upgrades here.
Yeah.
There's one or two that are worth looking at.
Round it out here. Just a couple.
Yeah. In faction, we talked Charmed Horseshoe to death. If you want to hear how much we love it, go to the last episode. We love it. So, done and done. We also talked about Cold Iron Nails, and that is a little trickier to leverage because it wants those range 1 attacks. It's restricted to hunters, so it can be tough to definitely get something out of it, but it's not bad.
Yeah, one thing we didn't talk about last time, not 40 minutes ago. Is there any room to bring weapons to pair with this?
Gosh, I looked at this a few times and I couldn't decide. I think where you do it, like Pac could sometimes use one because he's going to take that one shot, but then he's just got his butt stock for the rest. I think uninspired Haskell might be interested in it, so that he's got something that's got a little more output. I think you may have something there. Yeah.
I was thinking the cursed weapons.
Sure.
That they don't give glory normally. So in the event that you can get the glory off the kills with those, then you double up, and if you can't, then you're still getting
something. Yeah.
And those weapons are still
Cursed Cutlass is very accurate. And with Cold Iron, you'll get a spent and an unspent. Yeah. All right.
It's I see you. What, 4 Fury 2 damage or something like that?
Yep.
So
I don't know. Makes you a brawler if that matters.
Yeah, it's an option.
So yeah, that's a cool combo, and I think there is maybe some room for weapons. There's enough things that are kind of interested in a range 1 something. So not a bad thought. I mean, while we're talking about weapons, there's the retractable pistol.
Oh, I love this.
I love it too. I wonder if it's a thing that is like my heart's saying yes, my head is saying no, sort of thing. Like, but just for folks, this is a range 4, 3 Fury, 1 damage attack. It has the surprise characteristic. We'll get to that in a second. It's restricted to Haskell and Bridget, which is a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
This attack action's characteristics cannot be modified, so there's no way to change that. You can as usual. It means like supports, rerolls, those will work, but you can't get Glory Seeker helping you out with this. But surprise, which is the big deal on this, is that use this after an enemy fighter's move action. That fighter makes this attack, or this fighter makes this attack action. It must target that enemy fighter and cannot drive the target back. Other important distinctions is still happening during a super action. So if you are feeling cute and try to put duelist speed on, there's still a super action underway, and you won't be able to like step away from a charge.
Yeah. I thought about getting cute and then reread duelist speed.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to say about this, Phil?
Being able to ping somebody every time they move is really nasty, and I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to do that. Also, if you're just trying to score the what's it called, due process, just a weird name for that card, but due process is going to be really easy to score if you get to shoot every time your opponent moves. At that point, it doesn't matter if you hit, but if you do hit, putting 1 damage on people is pretty nice just because they moved.
Helps with chum.
Make people think about what they're doing here.
Yeah, and it is 3 Fury. So if you did spring for Branching Fate in your deck, this gives you a lot more chances to land Branching Fate as you kind of blaze away with your
Yeah.
wrist mounted machine gun. Apparently, so.
Yeah.
Also, this thing is range 4, which must be a balance thing. It must have felt too limited at range 3. This is like the littlest gun.
Yeah, it's like hidden in a glove, and somehow is just like sniper rifling off, like, oh, we'll just hit everybody anywhere on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't do the math, but I'm pretty sure if you're anywhere near the middle of the board, you can basically hit anybody with this.
You can reach a pretty long ways with it. And I think if it ever gets taken out of the deck for me, it would be because Haskell and Bridget is just a little too restricted for it. But
It's half the warband.
sure, yeah.
I mean, I know it's still restrictive.
Yep.
Restricted upgrades are always a knock worse than anything else, but
Yep. But
I don't like this.
It's pretty cool. I think you should also notice that because it reacts after an enemy fighter's move action, it can really mess with Kanan, who prevent their chains of moves. It can mess with
Cunning Crew.
Zarbag's Gits. It messes with Cunning Crew. There's quite a few after move action things that it will steal away that spot.
Yeah.
A couple of less used gambits, like with crushes. There's the brutal cunning brutality or whatever. But
brutal cunning.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But yeah, that's a window that's not insignificant to exist in, and to have it be repeatable is a big deal. So
yeah,
get this out against Kanan, and this whoever's carrying this pistol has got a target on their back.
Oh yeah, man, 2 wound fighters getting shot with this thing. Oh my goodness, that does not feel good.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, I want to see it in action. I guess I might be way too high on this card, but it just feels like so much damage potential because 4 hexes is such a long way to be away. You can very easily be like behind a bunch of friendly fighters and just be taking pot shots just because your opponents are playing the game.
Yeah, I did a little bit of thinking about are there, because you can't modify it, but you could react to it. So are there like reactions to particular attacks that would be? And
yeah,
one that jumped to mind a little bit was Acidic Strike, and you're falling too far down the rabbit hole at this point. But you do have this, possibility of like, hey, pop off a shot, Acidic Strike, upgrade off that they were kind of hoping to have when they started the charge. Like there's
living the dream right there.
So.
Now, if you do have things like Cleave and Ensnare, those are modifications, or those?
They're not. You can, but it is a little tough to get Cleave and Ensnare on long range stuff. But horseshoe. So, and there is they're hunters. So I think there's Sherike Claws.
This gives you Cleave.
And a Cleave, yeah. If you're a hunter, I think it gives you out to range 3+.
All the range in the world. Yeah. Sharik Claws is just, if you're a hunter, you get Cleave.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty great. You're a little bit higher on it than I am, but I think we haven't had a chance to see it yet. I didn't get to play it out, and so looking forward to seeing how that lands. Guess what? There's still more stuff in here.
So many good faction upgrades for these guys.
Yeah, there's Lucky Beakfoot, another upgrade that really just couldn't be printed in most factions.
Yeah,
you're only able to do it because these guys have so few wounds. This is a +1 defense. It'd be great if it stopped there. Right?
It would.
You can get Pock to 3 block. What?
Yeah.
You can get your other 2 big guys to 2 block. You can get Bridget to 2 dodge or 3 dodge if she's inspired. All kinds of good stuff. But it also says they cannot be dealt damage by lethal hexes or gambits, which,
oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, exactly. Like pretty tremendous. So, you can, if somebody has managed to sneak 1 damage onto your person, and you're expecting the ping coming, like in that where in our game where I could see it coming.
Yeah.
You asked me if I had the push, which I didn't, but I was also thinking like, man, if I had lucky
Oh
Hexbane foot,
man. Yeah.
I could drop that. All of a sudden, Pac would hop to 3 block, and he couldn't be finished off with that suffocating mist. That would be brutal.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's going. I have to imagine that's going in like every
Yeah. I
Hexbane
mean,
deck I built. Like that's just great.
+1 defense is super good no matter what. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they used to print stuff like this way back in the day, and it was busted.
Yeah, but even that was like you had to have a dodge characteristic, right? Like it
Right.
was,
Yeah. Or you had to, it was restricted to a specific fighter. So you're like, well,
sure.
is it worth
Yeah.
it?
It exists now for being in cover,
Right.
but,
Yeah. But that's like, you can just play a push or something and then suddenly it turns off. And that's,
right,
you can play around it. Whereas
right.
before it was back in the day and you're like, I'm on 4 dodge because.
Yeah. plus you're in cover where you might get suffocating misted unless you are hex beaked. So just great.
Super good.
Yeah, let's go with another defensive one. There's Protective Brand. This is reroll 1 dice in this fighter's defense rolls. Not quite an extra dice, but pretty similar. A lot of times you'll have something that didn't come up with success, or you're fishing for a crit anyway, in which case it's effectively +1 dice. And then it has this interesting caveat here: the target of the fighter's attack actions cannot have supporting fighters, and attackers that target this fighter cannot have supporting fighters. There's 2 different things to break down there. One is if the target can't have supporting fighters, then you can have some pretty great scything attack actions.
Yeah.
Because that natural defensive bonus they get for being in a crowd all of a sudden goes away. It gives you more flexibility with your range shots. Well, a lot of times you're trying to shoot at that back line. You could run right up to another enemy and shoot over the top of their head. And now they're not even helping their buddy out with a support.
Yeah.
The other side, the attacker cannot have supporting fighters. Sticking it to the Cunning Crew again, and also Canaan's Reapers, who Naderite gets shut off with this.
There's a few zombies that might like to have some support too.
So I've heard. So yeah, pretty substantial, and even Elathanes can get pretty accurate without, but this will help with
the situation. Support pretty easy too.
Yeah,
there's one more sentence of rules on this card too.
Oh yeah, this card cannot be broken.
Won't come up a lot, but might be impactful when it does.
It could. I think it's interesting that they picked that hill to die on. Like what would be insane is if this brand got broken. Like that just wouldn't make any sense. And you're like, look at some of these other ones. It's like ferocious bite. Like how are we breaking that? Again, I don't know. I guess we're breaking their teeth. Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah. It has to be something where they were just like top-down design. It's a brand. You can't take it off.
Right.
That's where that's the level we're starting on, and then we're figuring out the rest of the card from there.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with that. I think it makes for some fun thematic cards. Tends to make for more powerful things because when you start with the design standpoint rather than the gameplay, you're like shoehorning mechanics in to fit like a design, and it's like, we accidentally made something that's really powerful because it's now thematic. But I like it. I think this is actually pretty balanced. I don't think it's like super busted. It's definitely gonna be in most decks, I think. Just having the reroll and defense is pretty solid, and all the other stuff is just gravy. So
it felt pretty good. It felt like it had a lot of uses. It was just generally going to be handy. So I'm not saying you wouldn't ever find something else, but pretty good.
Pretty good.
I'm going to give you the next 4 cards all in one shot here.
Sure.
These are all damage bumps. The warband doesn't have amazing damage to start. There's some obvious. You knew this warband was going to take Glory Seeker because of those range 3 attacks. Done.
Yep.
Fighter's Ferocity, you can expect that to be in there. Again, ranged attacks.
Easy check.
And quite a few that have a lot of dice. There's a little bit of overlap with some attack actions that have have Grievous already, but not too bad. Great strength, that's right in there.
Yep.
And then I put Martyr's Fervor, and that's a faction specific one. It's basically Glory Seeker meets Great Strength. So
Yep.
Glory Seeker restricted to range 1 and 2.
Yep.
Um,
no questions there.
Yeah, seems fine. You may quibble over whether you need 4 or not. The first one to get cut there would be Martyr's Fervor if you needed to find something else. But
yeah,
seems fine. And then my last was this one feels like it could be a number of different things. I went with Brigade Strength. When this fighter makes an attack roll with 3 or more dice, this fighter is considered to have 1 additional supporting fighter. You have quite a few times where you're rolling 3 dice, and this can bring you from singles to doubles because a lot of times the dog will be there. And then it has the brawler caveat, +1 dice to this fighter's range 1 attack actions if the fighter is a brawler. So Amos really likes this. He can get pretty accurate even before he's inspired with this. Go to 3 smash with a support even before any dogs get involved. So
yeah. If you're Order and you're not playing Brigade Strength, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want to like put too fine a point on it, but Brigade Strength is one of the best actually like cards available as just like all your attacks. Just get an extra supporting fighter so long as you are rolling 3 dice. And it's like, well, what if I don't have 3 dice? It's like there's so many attacks that roll 3 dice. Or more. And having an additional supporting fighter for all those attacks is really good. Getting to count an extra faith. And usually it's Fury when you have more dice. So getting to effectively make all those Fury attacks smash is a really big deal. This is really good. I don't play a lot of Order. So and like when I do, it's usually doing stuff like playing Stalkers where this is way less impactful.
Right.
But I am super jealous of all the warbands that get to use this all the time because it's super good.
Yeah. Heck, I mean, I think Stalkers still like it because Clacktrock's a brawler, right?
He is. Yeah, you could put him to 3 dice and he'd be really, really good in that situation. I mean, the deck's also just like very averse to combat if it can, like, it's very just opportunistic with it. But these guys are not. They want to shoot everything and chop everything, and they even have a brawler. So it seems perfect to me. And then any of your other stuff that's checking to be like, do you have a supporting fighter?
Yeah.
Sure. I've got Brigade Strength.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so we talked all the way back to our surges. This might be a thing that says, okay, let's make that kill surge be the
orchestrated kill.
Yeah, let's make that kill surge be orchestrated kill. So
yeah.
Yeah. And if we salted disciplined strike in, then you've got even more that combos here too.
Yep.
So
it's juicy. Like it.
Solid up and down. Do we have anything else that we had just 1 or 2 here? Like you might trim at the edges with Martyr's Fervor. We're maybe not quite on the same page on retractable pistol.
Yeah.
And then like Protective Brand is cool. It might find something else. So if people were looking for a little different flavor, where might they reach for?
Well, something that I think I've probably just been burned on too many times from Shadespire days is having things like Duelist Speed and Silent Step on range 3 fighters.
Yeah. I am really kind of a little bit ashamed that I overlooked those.
They are both in this situation very, very good. Haskell can make huge gains by getting to pop off shots and then reposition afterwards for his next shot. Farstrider did many horrible, unspeakable things to me because of this. So I know to fear it. It doesn't feel like a lot, but throughout the course of a match, you can end up moving a lot with something like this.
Yeah. It's a good point, and it let you go again. And this is a warband that will potentially end up Voltroning someone, and that lets you get multiple activations out of that Voltron fighter.
Yeah. The only other thing I thought about, but probably isn't actually worth playing, because I don't think you're leaning hard. Well, one, I don't think you're leaning hard enough into the strategy, and two, I don't think that it's easy enough to cut upgrades because of how many good infection ones there are. But both Dying Curse and Screaming Demise do seem like they could still work here.
Yeah.
Especially because you could play them for free. Although I don't know that you'd want to in that particular situation, but they both do work. You could even put them on the dogs to be like, you absolutely don't want to touch these.
Yeah.
Not that you necessarily need to do that, but
yeah.
I just don't know that you can make room for them, but I kind of like the idea in theory.
Sure. I think we already mentioned Charik Claws, and then there's some reroll possibilities like Eagle Eye or Master of Shadows, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, possibilities.
Yep, those help out, and you can afford to kind of get onto a cover hex or a feature token, and then take your shots from there. Especially if you're a Haskell, kind of laying out a whole bunch of pain from there. So that's pretty interesting there. And then if you're feeling you're all in on the retractable pistol, that'll help the pistol land more shots.
Yeah, it does. Not one that I think she needs to go in the deck, and in fact probably should never go in any deck, but one that I just think is really interesting is Woodcutter's Strength. Would you ever consider putting this in a deck?
I would not. I would put it in maybe a Rivals Plus, and I would enjoy it in Rivals. This is restricted to Amos, and it gives him +1 damage for every success in his attack roll, right?
Yeah, that is exactly what it does.
Yeah, so it's always going to be at least +1 because if he landed a hit, yeah, and it will occasionally be +2 or +3, more likely getting there the more supports you have. So I think it's going to have some amazing moments. I just can't in a warband with this few wounds. I can't bring something that's restricted to a single fighter.
Yeah,
similar to Haskell. Haskell's got a great upgrade that makes him better and better the more friendly hunters are out. I'm like, well, if Haskell's out first, then this is a dead upgrade, and I just can't see taking it. I mean, maybe you can protect him, but oof.
Yeah, I honestly don't think Bane of Evil is even very good.
Huh? I mean, +1 damage at any range if they're all, like some of the benefits are pretty.
So the problem I have with this is that by the time you're getting, so the base level is +1 wounds, but you have to have one of your hunters out. That's not really very good. +1 dice is great, but you now have half your hunters dead.
Yeah,
that's bad. You're already in a bad spot at that point. Like, how many actions are you actually getting out of this?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have a soundless step on?
Sure. Yeah, I guess.
I mean, we're on the same page. I was saying I don't include it, but
you don't include it.
I can see some pretty spectacular things where he's, 3 damage with his inspired pistols, and maybe Glory just make sure he's shooting everybody dead.
There's some of those like hero at the end of the movie moments where he's like, I'm the only one left standing. Oh, and you know what? He could throw on Army of One here. He's the last guy standing, and he'll just have the super moment where he's like, I've got like plus multiple defense dice, plus multiple wounds, got all extra accuracy, extra damage. We're gonna go to town. But that is the fantasy. If anybody ever pulls it off, please let us know. I would love to see it and hear about it.
Yeah, totally. And this is a thing. Like, I'll play this. I'd be willing to play this warband in Rivals or Rivals Plus, and then maybe you include that and just have fun with it, sort of thing.
I think in Rivals these guys are going to be pretty scary.
They could be. I have a hard time wrapping my head around how well that pure Rivals objective deck is going to do for them. But that's a question for another day or another podcast. Looking at you, Battle Mallet.
Yeah, for sure.
But that gets us to the end. The only thought that popped to my mind, and I don't know if you have anything, but we were talking about all the range 3 stuff. We forgot to mention when we were talking about kill surges, we forgot to mention Winged Death.
Yeah. Because you can just get that from a kill with range 3.
Yeah. But their speed is low enough, and we're not including speed boost that the other half of it is not.
Yeah, it's not in play
not
at all.
Yeah. So
it'd be almost impossible. In fact, you'd have to do a double speed boost on a fighter to pick it up. That's
or have a dog burn an activation to charge, which is not great.
No thanks.
They've got better things to do, which is watch you move and then also move. So
yeah, exactly. All right.
So so that is where we landed. We're gonna include that deck. It's gonna start out if you're trying to look this deck up on the same day that if you're listening to this on the day of release, I don't yet have an Underworlds DB link that I can give you. So we're just it'll be handwritten out. It won't really fit in the show notes, so it'll be on our website and kind of the blog post for it right there. So that will be that. And we're super excited to hear what you try out. Did you find a totally different way to go? Like, is there a hold objective thing? Is there a more passive hanging back, and if they start killing off your front line, that back line is getting free upgrades and getting more and more scary? Like, where did people go with it? So
yeah.
Phil, you got any other cards that we haven't discussed, or thoughts about this deck build or warband that you want to share before we shut it down?
No, except that I want to see him out more. I one game with him, I feel like was really cool to see, and I feel like there's a lot more to learn here, and I think we're gonna see a lot of them.
I'm super excited to play them. They feel like a really fun puzzle. It's I think the game designers are kind of killing it as far as neat concepts lately. So
yeah,
that's pretty fun. And listeners, we're a little jealous because by the time you're hearing this, this has all been 2 weeks down the line.
Yeah.
And you guys have more experience with it than we do. So,
very true.
Hope we find you in fun times. That about does it. Anything before we sign out here, Phil?
No, I think that's it. It's fun deck, fun game. Good times.
Yeah. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at WTHcast and whatthehexcast@gmail.com. We should remind you that our review here today is made possible by Games Workshop sending us a copy of this warband that I was able to bust out and get a game in and build a deck with in order to be able to share the hype with you folks out there. So thanks to them for that. You can come check out themortalrealms.com, check out all the other podcasts, but also relevant to you at this point. It'll be a couple weeks on. But there are the card by card breakdown of this release. It is our first time trying that out. So if you enjoy it, let us know. It is a lot of work to kind of go through and do them one by one. There's plenty of other sources that do it. So if you don't feel like there's any value added, that's cool. I'll save myself the time, but we just thought we'd give it a spin this time. Coming up next, give us a hot second. That's way in the future at this point, folks.
Way out there. Although we'll probably have a new warband already. So
oh my gosh,
get ready.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see what the landscape looks like when we get back from our respective trips and such, and make a call at that point. Phil, are you ready for your quiz?
Well, I didn't study, but yes.
All right. We are going to go. Oh no, I had a card flagged because I was like, this is going to be great. This would have been a little too obvious. I was going to ask you this card. Not so lucky for the Hexbeak. That's a
yeah.
Little
it's like right there in the quote.
Right there. All right, let's try this. Everyone is guilty of something.
Ooh. Due process?
That's a good guess. I realized as I was saying that, I'm like, well, the problem is a lot of these guys are just going to kind of blend together because they're very on theme. That is you stand accused.
Ah, okay.
So that way you can accuse anyone because guess what? Everyone's guilty of something.
Everybody.
So, yeah. For your recommended listening, I didn't even mention it. These guys have cool, tall collars to keep them from getting bitten by vampires, I guess.
I think so, because they're vampire hunters.
And I like that there's big metal collars on Amos, on Haskell, on Pock. Bridget is still a little bit too junior, so she's got a leather collar.
Yeah, you got to earn it.
But they know what they got to do. They gotta follow that advice from the legendary Wu-Tang Clan. They got to protect your neck.
Oh yeah,
and that's what they're doing here. So, thanks, folks, for sticking with us. For you listeners, you've just been listening to kind of a normal episode. For us, we're doing the first time we've ever done this. We did back-to-back episodes, so tried to keep the energy up, and I hope you enjoyed. And looking forward to seeing you out there and playing some Hexbanes and whatever else the future has to hold for us. You guys are living in the future. We're just thinking about it. All right. For What the Hex, I've been Davy.
And this is Phil.
Cool. We did it.
Oh man. We did it.
Nothing like technical difficulties on the one night you're ever trying to do 2 episodes at once.
Yeah, right.
What the hell?
It's like, okay. Oh, I mean, hopefully we can make it a short night.
Yeah, hopefully we can just bang through this. Just kidding.
Yeah, spend 40 minutes just dealing with computer stuff.
I mean, I'm looking at the model right now. Whoops. Well, now I do have to edit it out.
You have to. There you go. Don't miss that one. People will be like, what?
What is he talking about? Yes. Okay.